Good morning. I see there's a few people who've joined us early, so this is the new webinar with our Linear Generation 2 product walkthrough, which will be getting underway about 10 a.m. UK time, so just under 10 minutes time. So if you could bear with us, and we'll get going just under 10 minutes time. Thanks very much. Good morning, and thanks to those who've joined us early. My name's Callum. We'll get underway in around 5 minutes time, so if you could just bear with us until that point, we'll get underway quite shortly. Thanks very much. Hi there, just a quick note to say we'll be getting started in about 2 minutes time, so if you can bear with us until then, we'll get started around 10 AM UK time. Thanks very much. Okay, I'll make that 10 AM, but I think I'll just give it 1 more minute just in case we've got any late arrivals. So if you bear with me for 1 more minute and then we'll get started. Thanks very much. Okay, so I think we'll make a start. So firstly, just to welcome you to this new webinar. Thank you very much for taking your time out of your busy schedules to join us and listen to us speak today. My name's Callum Ryder. I'm the marketing manager here at Raytec. I've been with Raytec for about 8 years now, and I'll be taking you through the bulk of today's presentation, which is looking at one of our latest products, the Linear Generation 2 luminaire, which we've recently launched as an upgrade to the existing Linear. So I'm shortly going to hand you over to Terry at Thorn and Derrick, who we're doing this webinar in conjunction with today. So Terry will give you a quick introduction to Thorne and Derrick, and then hand back over to myself to take you through the webinar. Just a few little housekeeping rules before I do that. There will be a Q&A session at the end, so please feel free to get your questions into us. You can do that through the GoToWebinar control panel. So you should see a little drop-down menu for questions where you can type your questions in. So please feel free to do that as we go through, as they come into your head, and we'll cover those off at the end. And other than that, I think I'll just move on quickly and hand you over to Terry to give you a quick introduction to Thorne and Derrick.
Morning everyone, or afternoon, depending where you are in the world. I can see we've got some guests from other countries as well as the UK. I'll just give you a very quick introduction to myself and Thorne and Derrick, and then I'll let Callum get on and with the webinar. Thanks for your time, obviously, for attending. My name is Terry MacDonald. I'm the sales manager here at Thorne and Derrick for our hazardous area division, and I've just been told that it's 17-year anniversary last month for me. So I've been with the company a long time, and I've been involved in the industry a long time. There are people on the call that are aware of Thorne and Derrick, at least some of my colleagues as well, so they know who we are. We were established in 1985. We've got office locations in Bristol and here in Durham. We serve local, national and international clients in the hazardous area and explosive atmosphere, heavy industrial industries. We've got about 30 staff now, and turnover is circa 10 million. Very experienced in hazardous area and explosive atmosphere industries. primarily working with consultants, contractors and end users. And we certainly specialise in hazardous area heating and hazardous area lighting with in-house design capability for both heating and lighting designs. We've been a Raytec partner since 2017. So I'm just seeing now I've got some technical issues. I'm hoping that everyone can still hear me.
I can still hear you, Terry. That's fine.
Okay, thanks, Callum. The slide on the screen is just a very quick overview. Highlight some of the manufacturers we represent and some of the products that we supply and that we can help with. If there's anyone watching the webinar, if there's anything on there that you feel we could help with, we'd be very interested to hear from you and see if we can work with you. Yeah, so Raytec, as mentioned, we've been a Raytec channel partner since 2017. Worked with them for a number of years now, working and distributing the Raytec product to our clients, working with consultants, EPCs at design stage, at feed stage, all the way through to construction, taken an interest in energy efficiency, capital expenditure and operating expenditure for the client. And we've done several large projects now with Raytec over those years. What I can say, Raytec's definitely a quality product. I'd like to think Thorn and Derrick are really good at selling, but actually you need good products to sell, and Raytec is certainly a good product. They were market leading in my opinion, and certainly brought huge innovation to the LED hazardous area lighting market with their generation 1. And I think, as you'll see during the webinar, that their generation 2 now uses improvements in technology as the years have gone by to improve what was already a top quality class leading product. Just very quickly, Thorn and Derrick are exhibiting over the next couple of months, and will be exhibiting the Generation 2 fitting and the new Raytec mid-power floodlight. So if there are colleagues or customers who are on the webinar that are going to be attending, please feel free to visit us or contact me to organise an appointment for a demo. Just to give you the dates, we're going to be exhibiting at ATEX Swansea on the 27th of April. We're going to also be exhibiting at ATEX Ellesmere Port on the 18th of May, and we're doing Chem UK, which is a 2-day event at Birmingham NEC. And as I said, we will have the Raytec products with us if you want to come along and see them, or also get a demo while we're there. There will be a question and answer session at the end. Callum will pick up the technical, but if you've got questions for myself or Thorne and Derrick, I'll certainly be happy to answer them. And I think that's time now to get my little bit out of the way and gladly pass it back over to Callum. So thank you all.
Thanks very much, Terry. So yeah, I'll move back on now and go through the main bulk of the webinar. So quickly trying to run through an agenda as to what we're going to cover today. So we'll look at the new features and the benefits of the new linear generation 2 luminaire, and then vice versa, what opportunities and costs those features and benefits bring to an end user or to yourself, depending on what stage of the market you are. We look at the new industrial variants, so it's predominantly a hazardous area product, but there are also a range of industrial variants available with the Generation 2 launch. Then we'll take a quick step back and look at the general specification of a linear product and what key considerations you need to make when doing that. And as we've said, there'll be a Q&A at the end, which we'll do our best to answer any questions you've got on the product, on Raytec, or on Thorne and Derrick in general. So please get those into us as we go through. So the first question that you may have is, why have we developed a second generation of SPARTAN Linear? Now, Linear is the most popular product in the SPARTAN range. We believe a very good product. just sort out a couple of technical issues here, so bear with me. So yeah, so it's the most popular product in the Spartan range. We believe a very good product, but at Raytec we always focus on continuous improvement and strive to make the products the best they possibly can be. So with this in mind, we wanted to build and improve on Linear's most important key features, so the things that mattered most to our customers. And this led us to do a comprehensive review, which looked at the physical design of the luminaire, performance of the product, and also the range as a whole to ensure that there's a linear suited for any application, whether that's a hazardous area, industrial, and all the specific requirements that come as part of that. So now we'll take you through what we've actually done in each of these areas, the design, the performance, and in range. So start with that first point in the physical design. So the new linear is more robust, more durable, and more heavy duty than it's ever been before. This is largely down to a redesigned front lens. So we'll look at what's actually changed closer up in the next slide, but the headline figures with the new linear is that it has twice the impact rating of the existing generation 1 products. It's more resistant to chemical attack, and that's all backed up by an IK 10 rating. So they're the sort of headline figures in terms of the durability and robustness of the new luminaire. So how have we achieved that? As I said, let's take a bit of a closer look. So you can see from the bottom right image there that the lens is now secured using a new clamping system. You can just make that out from the top of that bottom right hand side image. This means the lens is no longer screwed directly onto the fitting, and you can see that from the side-by-side comparison of the old and new lens at the top right-hand side of the slide. So you can see the old lens at the top of the screen there with the screws going directly through the lens, and the new lens just below it with those screws removed due to the fact it can now be clamped directly to the luminaire. And it's around those screw holes, which you can see on the existing lens, where damage or cracks were most prone on the old version of the luminaire. We still think that old luminaire, the generation 1, was a very good product, very robust and resilient. But if there were areas which were prone to issues, it was around those screws. So taking those screw holes out of the design removes those stress points. And allows that improved impact rating and that improved chemical resistance that we talked about in the previous slide. Another added benefit of the new design is that it eradicates the chance of dust or dirt from being trapped beneath the screw holes. Really, that's a purely a cosmetic issue, but nevertheless a definite improvement over the previous version, which we think makes a positive difference. Moving on now to the performance. So another big driver behind this project has been to maximise performance from the new linear. We've addressed that on 2 fronts. One was to get more power out of the luminaire itself. So we now have the WL168 variant, which would be a traditional 2x36 watt fluorescent replacement. That's now providing up to 7,000 lumens. And the WL84 variant, so your traditional 2x18 watt fluorescent replacement, providing up to 3,500 lumens. And as well as providing those products with more power, we also wanted to make them more efficient as well. So the new linear is fitted with a brand new driver. That means efficacy has been improved to 142 lumens per watt based on the Zone 2 variant, and 133 lumens per watt on the Zone 1. So these are figures which we consider to be industry leading. And just before I move on, actually, so just to mention that the driver upgrade applies to standard variants only, but there will be upgrades to come on the emergency versions in the coming months, so you can watch out for those ones coming through. Another feature which we think is a big improvement is the introduction of a choice of new optics. We're going to look at the benefits of these new optics in more detail in the next few slides, but they are ideal for a range of aisle, corridor and perimeter applications, and means that linear is now far more flexible and better suited for a wider range of applications than ever has been before. We've also improved the light distribution of the standard beam pattern on the Zone 1 variant, so we've redesigned the light engine to ensure there's no cut off from any potting or encapsulation around the LED, so the overall light distribution on Gen 2 throughout the range has been enhanced and improved. So we're just going to move on and look at the benefit of these new optics and how it has real world results. So as I said, as well as that increase in power, Linear Gen 2 now, through the choice of new optics, allows you to use fewer luminaires across the site and ultimately saves costs. So here we've got a fairly standard application on a 14 by 14 meter square room. So this is using the version you can see here is using the existing version of Linear, so the generation 1, where we've got a design utilizing 20 luminaires, consuming 678 watts in total across the installation, and that's achieving on average 165 lux, which you can see from the readings just below the area there. So now I want to compare that to the new Linear, the generation 2 product, and now under the same conditions, we actually need 16 luminaires. And despite using fewer fittings, there's actually more light on the ground as well. As you can see, this is achieving an average of 182 lux compared to the 165 for the generation 1 version. So in addition to that increase in the average lux and the fewer luminaires, there's also going to be a significant cost saving in both consumption. We're seeing about a 45% reduction in consumption thanks to that new, more efficient driver, and also a capital saving of around 17% due to the fact that we're actually installing fewer luminaires, and fewer luminaires are needed compared to the existing version. And obviously, this is a fairly small, modest application, but for large installations, these savings are obviously going to grow exponentially as well. So what we're seeing here is fewer luminaires are needed, more light on the ground, and big cost savings. So we think that's a big improvement over the existing version of the product. Another benefit is the ability to increase the height at which Linear is mounted, largely down to that increase in power, which it now delivers. So let's take a look at another design to demonstrate that. So this time we've got 9 fittings installed and an 18 meter square room. So on the left, we have the old version of Spartan Linear, the WL168. So this is the traditional 2x36 watt replacement. And on the right is the Gen 2 version of the same product. So equivalent sizes again, but the difference between them is that we have Gen 1 mounted at 6 meters on the left and Gen 2 on the right mounted at 10 meters. So we've gone 4 meters higher in terms of how high the luminaires are mounted. If we go to the next slide, so this is the same design, just looking at it from a different angle and looking at the traditional sort of light design report that you're used to seeing. We can see here that the two solutions, despite Gen 2 being mounted 4 meters higher than Gen 1, are actually achieving virtually identical results. So actually in both designs, they're achieving around 105 lux with identical uniformity ratings. So this ability to mount Linear Gen 2 at greater heights without compromising on performance brings, we think, a lot of opportunities. It actually brings the performance of the Linear into the territory of a traditional low bay style fitting, but with the advantage of being far more cost effective and also being available with emergency battery backup as well. So again, we think this is something which is of real interest to end users. The next benefit of those optics I want to look at is the great level of flexibility which Linear Gen 2 now provides, and really how it's suited for a wider range of applications than we would have previously with this standard optic. So let's take a quick look at one of those in a typical corridor type application. So here on the left, we can see a lighting design created using Gen 1 Linear. So I think probably agree that the results look fairly patchy, with a lot of the light being wasted against the wall. So you can see that bright spot against the wall, and that's left dark areas going along the floor as you continue down the corridor, because effectively that light isn't needed against the wall. It's where we want to put the light is along the ground to get a nice even illumination along the corridor. If you compare that same design but using the new Linear Gen 2, and this is utilizing an optic which is specifically designed for corridors, we can see that the floors are much more even light distribution. So less of that light's being wasted against the wall. There's less of a bright white spot against the wall there, and much more uniform illumination along the ground, free from dark areas. So again, we think that's a big improvement, not just on the increase in power, but also the flexibility which these new optics provide. And this is just another view of the same designs, the two corridors parallel with each other inside the black rectangle. And again, visually we can see how much better those results are using new Gen 2 linear. If we drill down into some of the numbers a little bit more, so starting with Gen 1, we're getting an average of 35 lux, so a minimum of just under 14 lux, and a uniformity of 0.38. Overall, not great. In comparison with Gen 2, using the equivalent size, we're achieving an average of over 50 lux, so quite a big increase in the average lux there, and a minimum of over 37 lux, with a much better uniformity of 0.74, so a huge improvement over the Gen 1 fitting. And this slide just reinforces that flexibility a little further. Another demonstration of the new opportunities which Gen 2 and the new optics provide. So this time in a handrail type application. Handrail applications can be notoriously difficult to achieve good results with lighting on when you're using linear fittings. Much like the corridor example previously, we can see that on the image to the right, we're getting much better uniformity of light using Gen 2 and those dedicated optics. So yeah, just an example of the extra opportunities which the new optics bring. And lastly, on this section, the performance optics can even mean it's actually possible to utilize a smaller linear product than you might have expected originally. So again, with two identical designs, this time we're looking at a warehouse type application where we're trying to illuminate the aisles between the racking. And on the left is a WL168 Gen 1. So that, again, that's your traditional 2x36 watt or 4-foot size luminaire. And on the right is a Gen 2 linear, but a smaller WL84. So this is equivalent to your traditional 2-foot luminaire or 2x18 watt fluorescent replacement. So side by side, the larger Gen 1 fitting would still have more power. But in this application, we can see from the left-hand side of the image that a lot of that light, again, is being wasted against the racking either side of the aisle, especially towards the top of the racking. So in contrast, looking at the right-hand side and the beauty of those new optics on the Gen 2 luminaire means we can target that light down onto the ground between the aisle exactly where we need it and want it to go. The upshot of this, despite using a smaller linear on the Gen 2 design on the right, is that both are delivering exactly the same performance on the ground. So these are actually providing 57 lux. That's a 12-meter mounting height. So moving now away from the optics and the performance upgrade, I just want to have take a quick look at certification. Linear Gen 2 has been certified to the very latest editions of the standards. If anyone's interested in those certificates, they are available to view and download from the product pages on the Raytec website, which is www.raytecled.com. And the fact that they've been certified to the latest editions of the standards has allowed us to obtain UKCA certification for our customers in the UK. If anyone would like to know more about UK certification, we did actually do a very detailed webinar on this last year. That's available from our website through Thorn and Derrick if that's something which is of interest. But obviously we know that UKCA is going to be becoming mandatory in the next few months. So it's important for us that we have this UKCA certification, and of course that means being certified to the latest editions of the standards as well. So all new Gen 2 luminaires will be UKCA approved as standard. And what this means for the Zone 2 variants is that the Zone 2 get my words out. The Zone 2 variants are certified using the EXEC marking as opposed to the outgoing EXNA. So this is a far more stringent protection concept, which other products and also manufacturers may struggle to obtain with products from an older design. Just to say as well, the new Gen 2 luminaire is Class 1 Div 2 approved for anyone who's operating out the North American market as well. So that's just the point there about the EXEC mark on the Zone 2 variant, so a much more stringent set of criteria than the outgoing EXNA marking. And lastly on this section, we've also improved the branding label on the Linear Gen 2, so a fairly minor thing, but we have done away with the old adhesive label on Gen 1, replaced that with a much nicer engraved stainless steel branded plate on the new Gen 2 luminaire, so just gives it a nice more premium feel. So a small thing, but you know, small things can make a big difference, so I think that's a nice little touch. Moving on now to the quick look at the industrial variants. So this, depending on how familiar you are with the Raytec products and the Raytec branding, this may be new to you, or might be something you're already aware of. But with the launch of Linear Gen 2, we've also introduced 2 new brands for Raytec's industrial products range. So if you're familiar with Raytec, you're probably familiar with the Spartan brand, which will now become exclusive for our ATEX rated hazardous area product. So if you see Spartan branded product, you know that it's by Raytec, you know it's a hazardous area product with the Linear Gen 2. We've also introduced Warrior, which will be our brand new brand for heavy industrial products, and then Urban, which is the new brand for standard, less heavy duty industrial products, which have a focus on efficiency and connectivity. So Warrior Linear you can find now on our website, and we'll be releasing more information on the Urban variants in the coming weeks as well. And this branding is going to be rolled out across the Raytec range going forward. So we'll just have a little look at what these 2 new brands mean in a little bit more detail. As I said, Warrior will be our heavy industrial brand, effectively replaces our existing Spartan industrial products. Although part codes will remain SBI and unchanged from before. These products will retain all the features and benefits of Spartan, so as the same features and benefits as the hazardous area version, but are designed for use in demanding, safe area applications. Urban will become our brand for standard industrial products and will be an entirely new range of industrial products. There'll be more focus on the commercial industrial sector, ideal for applications such as non-ATEX storage areas and production facilities. So this range will be leading Raytec's offering in terms of control, connectivity and efficiency. And like I said, there'll be more information coming on the Urban Linear variants in the coming weeks. Just a few little notes on logistics. So part code, as I briefly mentioned there, so as a natural evolution of from Linear Gen 1, all the part codes from the existing products will be retained for new Generation 2 Linear variants. We've done this to minimise disruption for any existing projects where previous versions of the products may have been installed. And packaging, so in terms of packaging, we've ensured the labelling on the exterior of the products are clearly marked Gen 2, so there should be no generation. So there should be no confusion between whether you've got a Generation 1 luminaire or a Generation 2 product when they're side by side on a shelf or wherever it may be. So that's just a quick note on packaging. And lastly, on colours. So in the past, Raytec, we've always had different colours for Zone 1, Zone 2 and industrial products, but a change on the new Linear Gen 2 luminaires is that all Linear Gen 2 products will be painted the same colour, which is RAL 9006, effectively the same colour as our existing Zone 1 product. So there's no differentiation any longer between Zone 1, Zone 2 and industrial product, but this has been done based on feedback from lots of our customers, and long term allowed us to provide the best possible lead times, and also have added benefit of allowing certain spare parts such as PSUs or different spare parts to be used across different zone variants. So you don't have a dedicated Zone 1 spare part, you can use that across the Zone 2 variant or industrial, which gives you an added benefit if you've got different products and different certification requirements across the site. And then just a note on legacy products, just to quickly run through. So with the launch of Linear Gen 2, the existing Linear Gen 1 products are effectively now discontinued, and Generation 2 Linear replaces all existing variants. So there should be no gaps from the Generation 1 variant. There should be an equivalent in Gen 2 throughout the range. And just a note on spare parts, anyone who's got Linear Generation 1 products installed, many of the parts are actually backwards compatible, with it being a natural evolution of the product, but for those that aren't, there's a 10-year availability on spare parts. So now we've covered all the new features and benefits of Linear Gen 2, I thought we'd just take a little step back and take a look at all the key considerations which you should really take into account when you're specifying any linear product for hazardous area application. Now, the first decision that you may need to make is lighting technology and the choice between a fluorescent linear and an LED linear. So this is something we've covered quite comprehensive in the past. I would recommend, if it's something you want to read more on, is our LED versus fluorescent white paper, which you can download from our website. But we'll look at some of the key things we found as part of that. So the first one was the LED suffer far less from degradation than a fluorescent, meaning that the luminaire can provide better output for a longer duration. Because of the rate of degradation in fluorescents in comparison to LEDs, which have a significantly longer lifetime, the number of maintenance interventions are significantly reduced, and that could result in a big cost saving in terms of maintenance. LEDs are also far better suited to harsh environments, performing better in extreme temperatures. So by design, they're naturally more durable, more resistant to vibration. And so again, this is going to help to reduce that level and frequency of maintenance with the luminaires. LEDs will also provide better control of the light output. So the directional nature of the LEDs means more of the light is targeted where it's needed and less light is wasted, as we've identified with the new SPARTAN Linear Gen 2 and the use of secondary optics. Can enhance that even further. So we demonstrated that with the different lighting design options we looked at, and how those choice of new optics and bring lots of opportunities and flexibility to the end user. And finally, the importance of these factors are all multiplied in emergency conditions. So because a luminaire will generally only operate at a small percentage of its original light output when it's in emergency mode, if the temperature is really cold or the fluorescent tube is toward the end of its life cycle, on a fluorescent fitting, that level of light output could be virtually non-existent when it comes to switching to emergency mode, whereas LED overcomes many of these problems. So really, I think our recommendation here is to make sure you're specifying an LED linear over a fluorescent. Of course, the benefits of LED are pretty well understood now, but if you do want to read more into the details and the facts and figures a little more, then like I said, you can download that white paper from our website. And when assessing a luminaire, you should also drill down into the product specs. This will help you to ensure that you're specifying a luminaire which is going to provide good results once it's installed, and it's also suitable for the environment where it'll be installed. So the spec you need will of course will vary depending on each application and where you're installing it, but as a general rule of thumb, you should be considering the performance. So look at the luminaire's lumen output, its efficacy. Does it stack up against other luminaires that you might be comparing against? Optics, are there different optics available that will allow you to tailor that light to your specific application, or is there just one standard optic which might be more limiting? Really, you should take these first 2 points into consideration together. You can have all the power in the world from your luminaire, but if you're not targeting that light in the right place, that power is totally wasted. So ideally, you need to find a luminaire which fulfills both of these requirements. And what we'd always recommend would be to carry out a lighting design, so there's no surprises at the point of installation. And like we said, Raytec can help you with that, as can Thorn and Derrick. So that's something we can support you with. And then also durability. Look at things such as the materials which the luminaire is constructed from, its IK rating, its IP rating, temperature ranges too. Ensure that luminaire meets the demands of your environment, where it'll be stored. And if you're unsure, ask that manufacturer, can they provide supporting evidence to show what testing the luminaire has been through? Because any credible manufacturer should be able to provide that to you. And if you're retrofitting, if you're replacing an old fluorescent fitting, you also need to consider the luminaire's dimensions, cables, or cable entries, and its fixing centers. So we'll quickly run through each of these. The dimensions, so the replacement LED linear should be the same size as your existing fluorescent, traditionally 2 foot and 4 foot sizes. A replacement luminaire of the same size means the existing cables won't have to stretch any further, so they can still be used on the new installation. Fixing centers, so the luminaire should also have the same fixing centers as your existing fluorescent. If they are in the same position and have the same thread and depth as the fluorescent luminaire, then those same brackets can be used. So utilizing the same brackets on a job could save significant cost for big installations. And then lastly but not least, cable entries. So having the same size and quantity of cable entries will also mean that the same glands can be used, providing they're obviously compliant with the ATEX classification. And traditionally there'll be 2 M20 entries at each end to allow for through wiring and loop in and loop out setups. But combine these elements together, so the fixing centers, the cable entries, and the dimensions, and what you'll be left with is a replacement LED luminaire, which is a plug and play replacement for your existing fluorescent in these. This will reduce the time and the cost of installation compared to a product which hasn't been designed with these features in mind. Just a couple of slides left now, but looking at ease of maintenance. So one of the benefits of an LED luminaire is that it reduces the amount of maintenance interventions which are required. But even still, you shouldn't consider an LED luminaire being installed in a hazardous area to be maintenance free. The nature of a hazardous area means that there will always be some routine maintenance required, and it should be an important consideration for any electrical product, but especially when the luminaire is being installed in extreme environments where access can be restricted. So when specifying a linear luminaire as a minimum, you should be asking yourself 3 key questions relating to how it's maintained. 1, has the luminaire been designed with maintenance in mind? As an example, Raytec's SPARTAN Linear features a unique modular design, which allows spare parts to be replaced independently and maintenance to be carried out quickly and easily. But that's not necessarily the case with all linear products. Some may be what we call sealed for life, where they're sealed or encapsulated as part of the manufacturing process, and opening one of these fittings could invalidate its hazardous area certification. You should also consider whether maintenance can be carried out on site or does it need to be returned to the manufacturer for maintenance. If it does need to be returned, that could mean you're left without light for a long period of time. In contrast, the ability to maintain the luminaire on site means that light can be restored within minutes if it's been designed with maintenance in mind. So that's an important thing to consider. And lastly, you need to check the terms and conditions of the warranty cover. Not just the duration of the warranty, but also what components are covered and what processes must be followed if the unit or components within the luminaire become defective. So find a luminaire which answers these 3 questions positively, and you have a fitting which is easy to maintain and allows for maintenance to be carried out on site, and this will prevent any significant downtime and should also significantly reduce the long-term ownership cost of the luminaire. As with any project, the initial capital outlay is obviously important, but you should also take into consideration that future cost, and that's why ease of maintenance is so important. So, like I said, prevents prolonged downtime, reduces ownership costs. And if you're specifying linear luminaires for a project, then the chances are that a proportion of them will probably need to be emergency variants, which are required in the event of power outages. And there's some additional points relating to emergency variants which you should consider. The first 2 are always a trade-off: emergency output, i.e. what power or brightness will the luminaire drop to when entering into emergency mode, and secondly the duration, i.e. how long will the luminaire provide light for in emergency mode. The higher the output, the lower the duration will be, and vice versa. So you need an understanding of what emergency duration you need to achieve on site, and then the more light the emergency can provide, or the more light the luminaire can provide while hitting this duration requirement, the better really. So if you specify a luminaire with a low emergency output, it may mean you need a higher proportion of emergency fittings on site, which will obviously increase costs. As an example of what we do at Raytec, so our emergency linears are available with a 25% output as standard, but we can offer up to 100% emergency output for shorter durations if that's required. The other consideration should be whether the luminaire has an automated testing feature. Without it, someone on site will have to manually kill the power to ensure that emergency fitting is working correctly. But if, in contrast, intelligent emergency systems will automatically cycle those batteries to ensure they're at peak health, and they communicate that result via an LED indicator, which you can see from the green light at the top of the SPARTAN Linear on the screen. So automating this process reduces that reliance on operator interaction, and it boosts the overall reliability of the emergency system. And lastly, depending on your project, there could be a host of application-specific requirements. You need to consider whether the manufacturer has something which can fulfill that requirement, or if they can be flexible to work with you and support you to fulfill that. So we'll quickly run through some of the ones that we come across at Raytec, but these are just a few examples. Safety shower luminaires, which you can see on the top image with the green lens. These variants are installed on or around safety showers and designed to guide workers to the safety shower in the event they come into contact with chemical substances. The green LED output is easily identifiable, and we've actually revamped the safety shower safety shower variants with Linear Gen 2 to give it a new lens, a new optic to ensure it's widely visible from a greater range of angles. Wildlife friendly or turtle friendly variants are something we developed specifically for the Pacific market. They use special filters to restrict certain wavelengths so turtles don't confuse that luminaire with light from the moon, which they rely on to make their way back to the sea after nesting. So if you're installing linears in a refinery in Scotland, then the chances are you probably don't need to worry about this too much, but it is a good example of, I think, Raytec being able and willing to develop bespoke solutions to suit different requirements and applications. More common requirements are the use of diffuse lenses, which help to soften the light. So if you're concerned with light output, rather than simply getting, so if you're concerned with the light output might cause issues and you want to get the maximum levels of light on the ground, rather than just putting light out, this might be something you want to consider. So similarly, the color temperature of the light, what does the manufacturer offer? What does the manufacturer offer in terms of the standard product? And is that right for application? And if not, what can they offer in terms of alternative color temperatures? So our Spartan Linear luminaires are 6,500 Kelvin as standard, but we also offer 4,000 Kelvin as well. I can generally accommodate most others if they're required to. So I'll just encourage you to speak to us if that's something which interests you. And lastly, I've covered on the previous slide, but you may need special emergency variants where the light output and duration is tailored to your project needs. So that's something to bear in mind as well. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. Thanks very much for your time to go through that. Hopefully you've found that useful and informative, and you've understood the benefits of the new Linear Generation 2 product, which we think is a fantastic product and a big improvement over what was already a good product in the first generation Linear product. So this does bring us now to the Q&A. So if you haven't got your questions in already, please do so, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. I can see there's a few on there already, so I'm just going to have a little look through. So the question from Craig, who asks in relation to the new lens that we have, are the screws captive to the lens sealing plate? So I think what you mean there is can the screws be removed? So to answer that, Craig, you can remove the lens without fully removing the screws. So if you're operating from a height, it is possible to remove that lens without the screws falling out. But it is also possible to remove them completely. So if you're removing or swapping over the lens for any reason, or you can also remove those completely. So yes, you can completely remove or retain the screws to the lens sealing plate. Just moving through. Another question from Craig, who asked about the T rating. So the T rating on the unit is T4 is standard. If you have other requirements, please let us know. As I mentioned, the questions about the LEDs. So the LED 6,500 Kelvin is standard. Lifespan of LEDs is 100,000 hours plus standard, but obviously that can depend on the variable which it's installed. I'm just reading through those now. And another question on battery replacement frequency for the emergency fitting. So all Raytec products are covered by a 5-year warranty. The only exclusion of that warranty is the battery, because it's seen as a consumable part. So the batteries will come with a 1-year warranty or 1-year guarantee is standard. We would expect them to last longer than that, depending on how they're used, but it is because it is a consumable product, they are covered by a 1-year warranty rather than the standard 5 years, which the luminaire is covered for. A question from Vasak, hopefully I've said that right. In emergency lighting, the battery type and location inside the fitting shall be shown. So just to try and answer that for you. So the battery which we use in the Spartan Linear product is a NiCad battery, and this is housed within the end cap of the luminaire. So it's actually, we've done that so it's very easy to with all elements of the linear, it's very easy to maintain. So it's literally 2 screws to remove that emergency battery from the end cap to give you access. So it's a very easy to access. But yeah, it's a NiCad battery which we use in the Spartan Linear. Question from Dylan: are there any specific areas you feel that the Gen 2 linear fittings surpass market competitors? So I think the first element of that to mention would be that, as I mentioned during the presentation, is that we feel that the power and the efficacy of Spartan Linear is industry leading. So we think that's again a big improvement over the existing version as well. As well as the choice of those new optics now, which give you a combined performance. We haven't just increased power, but we've also looked to target that light better than where it's needed. So those choice of new optics mean that we can target light for specific applications, for the corridor type applications, and we're making the most of that power. So that's again an area which we feel has been a big improvement over the existing version of Linear Generation 1. Just going through some more questions here. So there was a question from John, who asked if you could just explain a little bit more about the new optics. So yeah, so just to answer that question, John. So the standard optic on the Linear is a 120 by 120 circular beam. So that's the standard optic, and that's ideally suited for the majority of applications, but we do now offer a 90 by 90, 60 by 60, and 30 by 30 degree option available as well. So to tighten that beam angle in a little bit and punch more light onto the ground. We do also have elliptical options, so an 80 by 30 elliptical option is available too for certain applications that may be required for, and we can also rotate the optics as well. So if you want a 30 by 80 rather than 80 by 30, then we have that ability to rotate the optics, so that just allows it to be tailored to each application rather than to rotate the luminaire itself. And I did mention as well the new safety shower or safety shower luminaire, which has a dedicated optic designed for it for a very wide beam angle, which throws light out to the side. So obviously the idea with a safety shower luminaire is you can have maximum visibility of that green light. So by throwing that light out to the side, that specialist new optic helps you to do that. Another question from Vesak, who asks about the heat dissipation and heat sink which is utilised in the products. So yes, within the Spartan Linear product, there's actually a heat sink which is part of the. It's quite difficult to explain, but the heat dissipation is attached to the light engine of the luminaire. So there's fins which come from the back of the light engine, which then dissipate into the main body of the luminaire. So all Raytec products are designed around the LEDs. So we take the LED and build the housing around the LEDs to ensure it runs cool, and that heat is dissipated properly, and the luminaire can therefore provide a long, reliable life. So yeah, there is dedicated heat dissipation through extrusion on the light engine of the new Linear. So hopefully that answers how that works. So I think that covers all the questions we have. We'll stay on for a minute or two just in case there are any more questions at the end. I'd just like to thank you all for attending today. Hopefully you've found it useful. Terry, I'm not sure if you want to have a quick closing line as well.
Yeah, just to reiterate, thank everyone for taking the time out to attend, and thank you, Callum, for the presentation and the update on Gen 2. We certainly, Thorn and Derrick, are confident that Gen 1 was a fantastic product, and we sure Gen 2 is as well. And we've already got a large amount of Gen 2 stock, and hopefully we're going to be working with various clients on getting this product specified and installed on various sites. So yeah, thank you, thanks to everyone.
Great, thanks very much, Terry. And like I say, we'll stay on for another minute or two just in case there are any late questions But I'll take this opportunity again to say thanks for attending, and hope you found it useful and informative. And goodbye for now. Thanks very much.